Yes, it's still too early to say for sure, but you have to admit that Egghead, as quirky as its name may be, has all the right ingredients to become the most unique and impactful story arc in all of One Piece. Why? Well, if you make it to the end of this video, you will find out how Vegapunk is connected to each and every one of the Straw Hats, what Luffy's reunion with Lucci and 𝙻𝚎𝚐𝚐𝚗𝚍 actually means, and what the name of each of the Vegapunk 6 clones tells us about their role in this arc. Let's find out why. Egghead Island stands out as possibly the strangest and quirkiest island in a story that is famous for strange and quirky islands. There's a candy island, a dinosaur island, an angel island in the sky, a mermaid island down in the ocean, and a samurai island on top of the ocean. I mean, you get what I'm saying at this point. However, what already makes Egghead stand out from this list is that it seems to be connected to almost each and every one of the places I just listed. And that's of course because this island, that's said to be 500 years in the future, is the home of probably the most mysterious and anticipated character in the entire story, with of course the sole exception of a certain red-haired pirate. So I wouldn't be too surprised if he made another surprise appearance in this arc as well, maybe. But back to the story. Dr. Vegapunk, who apparently has been too busy doing science stuff to get a proper professor's degree at this point, is a character that knows more about the world than any other character outside maybe the Gorosei and maybe the remaining Roger pirates. Probably he knows even more. Now, no matter if Vegapunk is someone from the Void Century, a time traveler, or even someone from another planet, what's important right now is that he's possibly the only person in the world who has unlocked the secrets of the Devil Fruits. Whoever they are, they clearly know a ton about the true history and nature of the One Piece world, given that they also researched dragons and ancient giants, two groups of creatures that were officially once part of this planet some distant point in the past. And that's a point that I think has now only been proven more by the appearance of CP0, who have been tasked with assassinating the government's most valuable asset. Why would the Gorosei or Imu issue such an order, fearing that Vegapunk knows too much of the truth? Well, if they didn't have at least some sort of concrete proof that they do. I mean, yes, admittedly, usually the government doesn't hesitate really to take someone out on the pure suspicion that they could, a 1% chance that they could know something that he or she shouldn't. But this is their prized genius scientist that we're talking about that has enabled them to rule as securely as they have through their innovations. And so, to bring it back to my original point, Vegapunk's innovations are found throughout the entire world and have accompanied the Straw Hats' journey as far back as Alabasta, where they encounter a cannon that has eaten a Zone Devil Fruit. Just to really hammer this point home for you, the very first hint at this character that is now revealed and this island has been dropped almost 900 chapters ago, which undoubtedly makes Vegapunk one of the core elements of One Piece that Eiichiro Oda had planned right from the beginning. Just to quickly walk you through it, we have another object Devil Fruit on Enies Lobby, the sea stone covered ships of the Marines that allows them to pass through the calm belt unharmed, Nami's climate tech that with its weather egg strongly resembles the overall island of Egghead as a concept. The giant egg on the island basically serves as a giant terraforming version of that same technology that conveniently, you know, also can be used as a giant research facility for all of Vegapunk's quite a space-intense enterprises, let's put it that way. Later on, we ran into a bunch of biological experiments like Vegapunk's failed dragons on Punk Hazard or his research into gigantification. They were able to successfully duplicate one of the most powerful devil fruits in existence with Kaido's mythical dragon fruit. And maybe the most successful of all his experiments was the research he did in collaboration with Judge Vinsmoke that resulted in the creation of our all favorite cook Sanji and his siblings, who do have unparalleled and really strange powers. A power, by the way, that might have also played a decisive role in the creation of the 6 clones of Vegapunk we see in this chapter, and who I will analyze for you based on their names and attributes in just a bit. Because most impactful for the One Piece world were of course all his military projects that almost meant the end for the Straw Hat crew on Sabaody. Using his discovery of the lineage factor in devil fruits that also seemed to connect to the mythical Lunarian race somehow, Vegapunk not only turned the warlord Bartholomew Kuma into a cyborg, cloned him, but he also equipped him with the abilities of Admiral Kizaru's Pika Pika fruit light powers. And quite recently in the story, Vegapunk has finished the development of the so-called 𝙻𝚎𝚐𝚐𝚗𝚍, replicas of all the former warlords with even greater powers than their predecessor, the Pacifista. Now, this new weapon was not only strong enough to replace the existing warlord system completely, as you know, but the government even sent one of the 𝙻𝚎𝚐𝚐 with CP0 to take out their maker. Now, do I think that that was a particularly smart move? No, I really don't. I think that if Vegapunk is only half as smart as Oda makes him out to be, then they probably saw that betrayal of the government coming from miles away and have taken precautions against that. And if you're asking me whether or not I believe that Vegapunk will end up becoming an ally to the Straw Hats by the end of this arc, well, yes, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm going to talk about CP0 and why Lucci's appearance is the best thing that could have happened to this arc if you make it to the end of this video. It actually doesn't really matter if Vegapunk will be the ally or the villain of this arc. Heck, as we'll discuss in just a bit, they might well turn out to be both. My point here is that Dr. Vegapunk has been accompanying us throughout the entirety of the Grand Line. And I really think it's no coincidence that they have connections to almost all the Straw Hats. Let me organize them in order of most to least important for you. First off, there is Franky. Now, Franky is not only a cyborg himself and the second most technologically advanced character in One Piece after Vegapunk, but he also has spent a whole 2 years during the time skip in Vegapunk's old lab studying all of his work. These two will have a lot to talk about, and hopefully Franky will leave the island with an upgrade or two and a ton of fresh technical knowledge as well. I mean, just look at all the gadgets that we've already seen here. Giant robots and monsters, holograms, food making machines, a lot of stuff that looks suspiciously like space technology. At the very least, I want to see Franky leave with a larger Shogun Franky version than Vegapunk's. Then there is Sanji, who, as we've mentioned, kind of is the result of Vegapunk's research himself in a way. I really do hope that we get to see some more explanation of Sanji's true powers at worst, and an upgrade to those powers at best. Usopp and Nami are connected to them through the Climate Act, which hopefully also will receive a major upgrade during this arc as well. Then we have Chopper, who is looking to become the best doctor in the world and that can cure any disease. And if a science lab 500 years in the future is not the best place for that, I really don't know what would be. Then we have our captain, Luffy, who still doesn't know the true identity of his own devil fruit. Now, in general, I'm convinced that this is going to be the arc in which we're going to learn almost everything, if not actually everything there is to know about devil fruits and their secrets. And I'm pretty sure that Vegapunk is the right person to teach Luffy the true name of his Nika fruit and what those powers are truly capable of. Now, this is not a Straw Hat, but we also have to talk, of course, about Vegapunk's connection to Jewelry Bonnie, who it turns out is Kuma's daughter after all, and who has been to this island before as a child. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, if Kuma was a king, I guess that technically makes Bonnie the coolest princess in any arc so far. No offense to any Vivi fans, of course, out there, but still, you know? And then we have, of course, Zoro, who at first glance might not seem to have any relationship with Vegapunk, but I'm just gonna put it out there and pray that it'll come true. I want to see one of Zoro's swords eat a devil fruit. There, I said it, it's out there now. If you also want to see that happen, well, make sure to hit the subscribe button because otherwise it definitely won't. But wait a minute, this is like still the beginning of why Egghead could be the best arc One Piece has ever seen. Like, you see how much longer is left in this video? Like, this is only half the story. What's crazy is what I want to talk about next. Because while we all thought that Vegapunk is just one old dude with a mustache? Well, turns out that they went full 6 paths of pain and created 6 other sentient versions of himself that all function independently, like they're all their own people. Like, what? And this is where this all gets very, very juicy. You see, it's really interesting how much information we can already extract about Vegapunk and all of his 6 paths from just one panel where we got showing how they're all organized. Well, first of all, we do get confirmation that there is the actual original body of Dr. Vegapunk that's still alive. He didn't just go and split himself into 6 parts, no, there is still the old version as well. Now, do I think that it's gonna be a cliche bold old man with white lab coat and mustache after all? Well, it's possible, but I'd prefer the original Vegapunk to be more of a, let's say, surprise. Maybe a non-human character or a character we've already met somewhere in the story that we totally thought was unimportant. Or how about the theory that Vegapunk is actually a time-traveled version of Frankie? You know what? I'm just gonna let myself be surprised by whatever it's gonna be. We do know a bit more, however, about Vegapunk's 6 alter egos. So this is how it works. Each of the 6 has a number ranking from 1 to 6. This might turn out to be false later on, but it seems to me like there is actually some sort of hierarchy in this ranking. After all, we do see number 2 taking orders from number 1 about not underestimating the Straw Hats and bringing them to him. Then each of the 6 is also assigned a kanji that seems to describe their personality in some way or form. We have justice, evil, thoughtfulness, wisdom, violence, and desire. And finally, each of the 6 also has a unique name based on a real or mythical character from our world. There's Shaka, Lilith, Edison, Pythagoras, Atlas, and York. And these names together with each of their attributes tells us actually quite a lot about them. So let's start with number 1. Justice, Shaka. As far as I can tell, this version of Vegapunk is based on Shaka Zulu, who was the king of the Zulu kingdom from 1816 to 1828. A legendary and quite controversial ruler, he instituted wide-reaching reforms and innovations that turned the Zulu military into a quite terrifying force. And at the end, he was ultimately assassinated by his 2 half-brothers. Now, this is super interesting already. Now, I think as we'll get more clear as we go through each of these 6 versions, to me it seems that based on their inspiration, each of them might be responsible for different inventions credited to Vegapunk. And I do think that number 1 seems to be a prime candidate for the one who created the pacifista and the seraphim. I mean, he is number 1, and the fact that he has the kanji for justice also puts him quite close to the Marines and the government, plus the entire military invention thing. And who knows, could him being killed by 2 of his half-brothers hint at a conflict between the different versions of Vegapunk? Like, just imagine how cool that would be. Some siding with the Straw Hats and some siding with the government? Heck, maybe there's just one Vegapunk among the existing 6 who is actually in cahoots with the revolutionaries. See, that's why I say that this arc has the potential to be something else entirely. Okay, so then we have number 2. The evil Lilith. The version of Vegapunk we have seen the most of so far and who does come across a bit evil in the interactions she's had so far. Now, Lilith is the only Vegapunk I think not based on a real person as far as I can tell, but on the legend of Lilith, a female figure in Mesopotamian and Judaic mythology who is said to be the first wife of Adam before Eve and becoming the first primordial demon after being banished from the Garden of Eden for not obeying Adam. Again, absolutely love the characters that Oda chose here. They are all super fascinating by themselves already. I think Lilith as the demon archetype is basically the one who created anything monster related, like the dragons or the army of sea kings that we see her summon, and she has a pretty awesome design too, I must say. So let's just wait and see how evil she really turns out to be. Number 3, the thoughtful Edison. Now, this one you probably figured out yourself. This Vegapunk surely must be based on Thomas Edison, the American inventor who developed a ton of devices in fields such as electric power generation, mass communication, sound recording, and motion pictures. In other words, his invention inventions, which include the phonograph, the motion picture camera, and early versions of the electric light bulb, have had a widespread impact on the entire modern industrialized world. Now to me, this kind of sounds like the most civilized version of Vegapunk, you know, who most likely came up with a lot of awesome technologies like the hologram we see or the Denden Mushi. Harmless, but extremely useful innovations that benefit the world, in short. Now number 4 is the wise Pythagoras. You might remember his theorem from high school. However, if you now think, oh, that's boring and that all he did was math, well, you're very wrong, because Pythagoras is actually most famous for his metempsychosis, or the transmigration of souls. I thought I might get your attention with that. Now, Pythagoras thought that every soul is immortal and, upon death, enters into a new body, just like the devil fruits. Plus, he did a bunch of astronomy, like proving that the Earth is round, sorry flat earthers, and the identity of the morning and evening stars being the planet Venus. Oh yeah, and he was also the first one to divide the globe into 5 different climatic zones. Now, there is a bunch of stuff in there that we can relate to Dr. Vegapunk's research, as you probably noticed. Anything climate related, like the Climate Act and the Weather X. There might be some space science hinted at there as well, but most interesting right now, I think, is the idea of transmigration of souls. Now this for me suggests that this is the version of Vegapunk that might be responsible for all the devil fruit related research, including the lineage factor and feeding devil fruits to objects. Next up is number 5, which is Violence Atlas. Now just a few moments ago I said that Lilith was the only mythological character, but now that I think about it, that was clearly wrong, because Atlas was one of the Titans that fought a great war against the Greek gods. And when the Titans were defeated by the gods, many of them were banished to Tartarus, but Zeus condemned Atlas to stand at the western edge of the earth and hold up the sky on his shoulders. And I do actually find this a really interesting choice here. I really wonder what Atlas's role might be in the context of Vegapunk. My best guess would be that since she's a Titan and pretty big herself, she might be the one who is responsible for the research into gigantification and the ancient giants that we've seen. You know, like for example the numbers. And then we have number 6, Desire York. Now, this one I'm really not quite sure who Oda's trying to base them on. My best guess would be York, the American explorer, who was the only black member of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Not really sure what his field of research then might be in the context of One Piece. Exploring the One Piece world, maybe? I mean, if Oda wanted to go down that route, number 6 Vegapunk might look very much like a Seraphim king, like a Lunarian, given that the historical York was also black. You know, similar to how number 5 Atlas, who is based on a Titan, is huge, or how Lilith, based on a woman, is a woman. Really unsure with this one, but that's my best guess so far. But we're not done yet, because we saved dessert for last. Because CP0 has just joined the chat. And fun fact, they have been in 4 arcs in a row now, with the only exception being Zoe. On Dressrosa, Whole Cake Island, Wano, and now Egghead. That's some really bad luck they have running into the Straw Hats every single time. But the fact that we finally get to see a reunion and possibly a rematch between Luffy and Lucci, I mean, I really love you, Oda, for doing this. I'm really excited that it feels like this arc is kind of going to be the opposite to Wano, a small island with only a handful of characters, but boy, the stakes are just as high. The government coming with some of their strongest fighters, the Straw Hats, Bonnie being the princess, and Vegapunk and their clones kind of torn between the government that has betrayed them and the future pirate king. I mean, dude, just think of all the lore and the secrets that we'll get to explore during this arc. It's actually kind of hard to keep track of all the questions that we could get answers to from Vegapunk. Luckily, I made a video about just that, so watch that here if you like.